This is the Yashica LM. This is a medium format camera that shoots 6x6 images. This camera was originally made between 1958 and 1962, and depending on the version that you have, it could look completely different. It could look like this, it could look like some other different type of version that has a different front-facing camera, and it could also be called Yashica LM. So depending on the version you have, they may look completely different, but they do the exact same things, and they have basically the exact same functions. This camera is one of many in the Yashica TLR line, including the Yashica A, the Yashica C, the Yashica D, and of course the very popular Yashica Mat 124G. The camera is pretty light, coming in at about 2 pounds, and that's not like an official weight. I couldn't get an official weight for it online. I couldn't find it, and I don't have like a scale to weigh this camera, but on my hand, it feels like it weighs about 2 pounds. I personally carry this around my neck whenever I'm going out. It's definitely an eye catcher that people always point out, like, hey, what camera is that? I'm like, it's the Yashica LM. You should get into it. This is a fully manual camera that you can take with you anywhere. You don't have to worry about dying depending on where you're going to. You don't have to worry about batteries, wherever it is you're taking it to. This camera can shoot from 1 second all the way up to 300th of a second. It also has a bulb mode for all your long exposure testing, all your long exposure shooting when you're shooting your astrophotography. Even though I wouldn't necessarily recommend this camera for astrophotography. It has an 80mm f3.5 lens on it, as well as a self-timer mode for people like me who don't have any friends. The LM in the Yashica LM stands for light meter, and the light meter on the camera is one of the things that differentiates it from the other cameras in this particular lineup, as well as some other little things I'm going to be talking about a little later. I sometimes love Yashica's literal naming sometimes, because the Yashica A is literally the first camera in this line. Then you got the B, the C, the D, the E, the EM, the LM, the 124G, and some other ones that I'm blanking on right now. So Yashica actually did a good job in naming these, and they made little improvements on all these cameras as they went down the line. So this is something to definitely look out for if you're looking to get in this particular TLR style camera. I've had this particular camera for a little bit. I've actually had 2 Yashica LMs, as well as the Yashica A, the Yashica D, and I also have the Yashica C with me right here. And I've gotten used to the way these cameras function. They give me a certain sense of love for the 6x6 format, a certain love for the 6x6 medium. And I've sort of fallen in love with it. I've sort of taken to it, and it's given me a new love for photography, especially medium format photography. I personally took this particular camera out a little while ago, and I made a video that I'm going to link up here or up here. I went out and I shot silently with the 50D at sunrise, so make sure to check out that video if you want to see how I go about shooting this camera on a tripod. This particular model that I have here is taking a little bit of a beating. When I originally bought this, it came in with a cracked viewfinder. I don't know if you're able to see it right there. I think it just showed up right there for a second. Yeah, it came in with a cracked viewfinder, and I thought that would affect the picture quality or my ability to focus the camera, but it actually didn't affect it that much. It still gets beautiful images, and it gets the job done. On the left side of this camera, you have the focusing knob, as well as the frame advancing knob and the frame counter. Another thing that differentiates the Yashica LM from the other cameras in this line is this button right here. This is like the shutter release button when you first load the camera that allows you to start advancing your frame. Then you see the arrow, then you see the numbers. This particular thing allows you to know when you have your film in place. On the right side of the camera, you have the exposure meter, as well as the knobs for locking your film into place when you're loading your film into the camera. On the particular version that I have right here, the name at the top opens up to reveal the light meter. On other versions, the light meter is fully visible at all times, which may affect the way that the light meter works. Like most TLRs out there, the hood also includes a magnifying glass, which further helps you with focusing. And again, like most TLR cameras, you can push the front part of the camera down to get into a sport mode that allows you to focus when you're doing sport mode. The version that I have here doesn't stay down on its own, but other versions just stay down on their own by themselves, and allows you to get like a good sports mode focusing, which I don't know, it's useful in some certain situations. When it comes to loading the camera, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is twist open the bottom part of the camera, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Twist it left to open it up, take out the empty spool, put it to the top, open up your film, take the film, insert it at the bottom, open up the little crinkly thing that comes with these 120 films, roll it all the way to the top, and then advance your film. So you roll the film until you see the arrows that say start. Some films say start, some films just have the arrow, and depending on the film that you use, all of them should have a marker that show you where to start it and where to line it up. But on this camera, there's a red knob where you can line it up with. Then you close the camera, then you press the shutter release button as well as the little pin button that I showed you on the side here. You have to press this button and then push this down at the same time. You have to press these two buttons at the same time in order to get it started, in order to get the S button that you're going to see on the side right here. And once you see that S button, then you can start advancing the film, and then you see an arrow, and then you see a couple of things before you get to the number 1. And once you get to number 1, it should lock in place. There's also a flash insert at the front of the camera that allows you to get a flash. I personally don't even have a flash for this particular camera. There's also a shutter release knob that you can get if you want to shoot at lower shutter speeds, and that's also something you can get for this camera. I want to talk to you about some of the things that you need to know about this camera. Some of them are good and some of them are just worth noting. Let's start with the good. The first thing is that if you know exposure and if you know focus, the pictures that come out of this camera are chef's kiss. They're pure. They look beautiful. They look amazing. And that's one of the things that has drawn me to this camera, are the pictures that it's able to create. The second thing, as I've mentioned before, is that the camera is relatively light for a TLR camera, and I find myself carrying around my neck a lot and shooting a lot with it, and I basically carried it as a street photography camera. I take it out with the street with me. I shoot buildings, I shoot people. I plan on taking this out to a lot more events, especially this summer, so stay tuned to my channel for more content related to this particular camera. This camera is also excellent for portraits. Like, I'm not a portrait shooter, I'm not a portrait photographer. I don't necessarily shoot a lot of portraits, but when I do get to shoot portrait with this camera, I can't tell you how much I love the pictures that I get out of it. So if you're looking for something that could double as a street photography camera as well as a portrait camera, and as well as a camera that you can use for so many different things, I definitely recommend the Yashica LM. Now it's time for a couple of things that I think are worth noting. The first thing is that you have to account for parallax. Now, when you're looking through the viewfinder at the top here, you're actually looking through the top lens right here. This is the viewing lens and this is the taking lens. So when you're viewing through this top lens right here, you're viewing it at a certain height level. So if you're taking it through here, that means the picture is going to be a little lower. So what I try to do is view through here and then lift it up slightly and then take it through here. Now, this is going to take a little bit of getting used to, and then when you shoot with it the first couple of times, you're like, wait, I thought the picture was going to be a little higher, and that's what we call parallax, and that's something that you have to account for. Some cameras have a line inside the viewfinder, like the Mamiya C330, that has a line at the inside of the viewfinder that shows you where everything's going to be, but this camera doesn't. So this is something you have to keep in mind when shooting with this camera. The second thing is that the lens is a little bit limited. Depending on the type of person you are, depending on the type of focal length you like to shoot with, you may not like this camera. It's only an 80mm lens and you can't switch it out. This is something you're stuck with. This is something you're going to have to live with. And this is definitely a style choice. It's definitely something that you have to get used to. It's something that you have to definitely vibe with. But I also think it helps you create a certain type of style, it helps you create a certain type of look, and it gives you a sort of limitation that allows you to be more creative. Another thing is that it's not necessarily a landscape camera. For me, I personally like to shoot landscapes, I like to shoot buildings, and even though it's not necessarily a landscape camera, it's something that you can definitely create a certain type of style when you try to shoot landscapes. So think about that before buying this camera, before getting this camera. When shooting handheld, I wouldn't shoot below 1/100th of a second. That's because anything lower than that, you're going to get camera shake. If you're going to be shooting below 1/100th of a second, I definitely recommend you either have very steady hands or you get yourself a tripod with a good shutter release knob that can allow you to get the picture that you're trying to get. The last thing worth noting when it comes to this camera is that you can accidentally shoot double exposure images. There's nothing stopping you on this camera from shooting double exposure. So a good rule of thumb is that whenever you shoot with this camera, press the button, advance to the next frame, cock your shutter, so next time you have something that you want to shoot, you can just take out the camera, focus, and shoot. And that brings me to the end of this video. Let me know what you think about the Yashica LM as well as the other Yashica cameras in this lineup. If you have one, what are your favorite things to shoot with them? Show me some of the pictures that you shot with these cameras. Let me know some of the quirks that you found with these cameras in the comment section down below. Until next time. Oh, I also have the Yashica C here with me. I'm going to be making a video on this a little later, so stay tuned to this channel for more. And that's it. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more amazing content like this. Until next time, make sure you stay safe, make sure you stay coloring, make sure you shoot film. And I'll see you in the next video, man. Bye. Yeah, this is J. Cole.